He was the architect of the largest Ponzi scheme in history, a man who deceived investors out of over $65 billion. But after the fall came the reckoning. This is the story of Bernie Madoff's time in prison, how one of Wall Street's most powerful men lived out his final years behind bars. Please like and subscribe if you find this content interesting. Part 1. The Fall. In December 2008, as the global financial crisis gripped the world, Bernie Madoff confessed to running a Ponzi scheme that had spanned decades. On June 29, 2009, he was sentenced to 150 years in federal prison. The judge called his crimes extraordinarily evil. His victims ranged from celebrities and hedge funds to retirees who lost everything. Madoff was shipped off to Butner Federal Correctional Complex in North Carolina, a medium security facility with a medical center. It's the same prison that housed other white-collar criminals, like mobsters and corrupt politicians. But unlike his luxurious life in Manhattan, Madoff's new world was one of concrete walls, steel doors, and a slow, grinding routine. Part 2. Life behind bars. In prison, Madoff was given inmate number 617-27054. Gone were the tailored suits and his luxury Park Avenue penthouse. In their place, standard-issue khakis, a bunk bed, and a 6 a.m. wake-up call. According to former inmates, Madoff initially kept to himself. He worked in the prison's chapel as a clerk, earning just pennies an hour. But his notoriety preceded him. Some inmates reportedly admired him, others despised him. "Some guys looked up to him like a gangster," said one former prisoner. "They'd ask for financial advice, as crazy as that sounds. But others, they wanted nothing to do with him." Part 3. Health decline. As the years passed, the weight of prison life and age began to take a toll on Madoff. He suffered from kidney disease, hypertension, and cardiovascular problems. By 2019, Madoff was in end-stage renal disease, undergoing dialysis multiple times a week. In early 2020, he requested compassionate release. His attorneys argued he had less than 18 months to live, but the government pushed back. Federal prosecutors stated, "Madoff committed one of the most egregious financial crimes in U.S. history. Compassion should be reserved for those who show it to others." The request was denied. The judge declared that many of Madoff's victims were still suffering, emotionally and financially. He would die in prison. Part 4. Family tragedy. Madoff's punishment wasn't limited to prison walls. His family life collapsed in the aftermath of his crimes. His older son, Mark Madoff, died by suicide in 2010, on the second anniversary of his father's arrest. His younger son, Andrew, battled cancer and passed away in 2014. Both had worked at their father's firm. Both insisted they never knew about the fraud. Madoff's wife, Ruth, disowned him publicly, though reports suggest they kept some contact while he was incarcerated. She surrendered most of their wealth and retreated into a quiet life. Ruth Madoff, in an interview, is quoted as saying, "The man I thought I knew no longer exists." Part 5. Prison reputation. Inside Butner, Madoff's reputation was a paradox. He was despised for the destruction he caused, but oddly respected by some for how he beat the system for so long. He was the king of con. A lot of guys looked at that and thought, this guy outsmarted Wall Street. But Madoff wasn't just another inmate. His name carried weight, and so did his connections. In the same prison resided Carmine the Snake Persico, the notorious boss of the Colombo crime family. Persico had spent decades behind bars convicted in the famous commission case. But even in his 70s and 80s, his influence in the prison system was formidable. Rumors circulated that Madoff and Persico formed a kind of alliance, sharing meals, stories, and allegedly, protection. A prisoner who served time with Madoff is quoted as saying, "Bernie had protection. He was under Persico's wing. No one messed with him because of that." But Persico wasn't the only reason Madoff stayed in control. Even in prison, he found ways to run the game. One infamous tale? Hot chocolate. Madoff discovered that the commissary's Swiss Miss packets were in high demand, especially in winter. He started buying up as many as possible, creating a monopoly on hot cocoa and trading them like currency. Former inmate is quoted as saying, "He cornered the market on hot chocolate, like, literally. It was classic Bernie. It was absurd, but also symbolic." Even in prison, Madoff found ways to dominate a system, even if it was just the prison pantry. He also had a reputation for being arrogant, even flippant about his crimes. According to reports, he'd brag about how easy it was to scam people, laugh off the damage, and show little remorse. Former correctional officer is quoted, "It was like he didn't care. He was doing time, but mentally, he wasn't really here." One inmate said, "Bernie acted like he was above it all, as if this was just another phase, not a punishment." Whether protected by Persico or propped up by ego, Madoff carried himself with a couldn't care less attitude that rubbed many inmates the wrong way. He wasn't just surviving prison, he was working it like a hostile takeover. Part 6. Death and Legacy. On April 14, 2021, Bernie Madoff died in prison at the age of 82. His cause of death, natural causes related to kidney failure. There was no fanfare, no state funeral, just a quiet end to a very loud life. Madoff's death brought little closure to the thousands he hurt. Many victims never recovered their losses. Some were reimbursed through the Madoff Victim Fund, but it was a fraction of what they'd lost. His name now stands as a cautionary tale in financial history, a man whose greed destroyed lives and whose final years were spent in a slow, painful decline behind bars. Bernie Madoff once walked among the financial elite, but in the end, his empire was built on lies, and it all came crashing down. His time in prison wasn't marked by violence or drama, but by isolation, illness, and the knowledge that he would never be forgiven. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more true crime quirky documentaries.